Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of Climate Action Fortnight. I'm very pleased to welcome you all today. So that little video that we've just played at the start is one of our flagship programs that we've been running recently around our litter campaign. So for those that don't know who I am, my name's Lee Jowett. I am the Sustainable Schools Coordinator here at Leicester City Council, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to our Healthy Living Day today. Those videos that you've just seen are all related to our Love Where You Live campaign, and they're available up online right now, starring lots of our students from schools in Leicester. So the students you've just seen were from Castlemead Academy, raising awareness of fly tipping. So if you want to find out more about that, just go to schools.leicester.gov.uk/litter. So as I say, my name's Lee Jowett. I'm Sustainable Schools Coordinator here at the Council. And also during the next 2 weeks, you'll also get to meet Mark, who's our Eco School Officer, and Amy, who's our Project Officer in Environmental Education. So today, as I say, is our Healthy Living Day. We've got 3 fantastic speakers who we'll introduce shortly. We've also got our Carbon Miles food activity that's available online right now. And this evening, we've got our Climate Emergency Eco Teach Meet with all sorts of focus around the climate emergency, raising awareness of it in schools, and how we can tackle the climate emergency that we've declared at the City Council. So our first speaker that I'd like to introduce today is Jess Mazuria, who is an NHS dietitian and also involved with our city catering, and looks a lot at looking at healthy diets and balanced diets within our city catering. So Jess, I'd like to hand over to you if that's okay.
Great, thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Can you all see that?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yep, is it all come up? Okay, fantastic. So, welcome everyone. My name, like I said, is Jessica Masuri. I'm the school meals dietitian for Leicester City Catering. And today I'm going to talk about some key important topics to do with sustainable diets, benefits of fruit and vegetables, portions and practical tips, because I want to give lots of suggestions of how we can incorporate our 5 a day, and a little bit about being vegetarian or following a vegan diet. So, sustainable diets. These are diets that with low environmental impact, which contribute to food and nutrition to a healthy life for present and for future generations. So,
can I just ask you just to share your slides full screen, because at the moment we can just see it as a small one, I'm afraid.
Oh dear, okay, all right. Let's try again. I'll try once more, otherwise you might have to take over.
That's not a problem.
No, I don't think it's letting me. Can you see it now?
Not full screen. I'll share mine if that's okay.
Thank
and then
you.
just give me a shout
Absolutely.
Not a problem.
There we go.
That should do that. There you go. That should come up now. There we go.
Great. Thank you. So we're on to the third side, sustainable diets.
Okay. Brilliant. There you go.
Thank you. So as I was saying, so this is a win-win for the planet and your health. We can help reduce our carbon footprint and help our planet. And one of the key things is to reducing red meat. So having meat-free days. And as some of you may have noticed on Monday, we had on our school menu, we had a meat-free day where we had corn enchiladas with potato wedges and chocolate brownie or coconut cookie. So I hope you all enjoyed that meal on Monday. Another way is to help a planet is by eating more plant foods. So on our school menu at the moment, we always incorporate, in fact, beans, lentils, and meat alternatives. So right now we have dishes like vegetable bolognese, barbecue corn. We have vegetable shepherd's pie, which has got vegetable mince in there and some lentils. We also have a vegetable curry on the menu, which includes chickpeas, lentils, and also 3 different vegetables. So we try and balance the meals every time we have a school dinner. The third thing, though, is about reducing food waste. So it's very important that we work with the school and the cook and the school council to look at what's most popular, and if there's a dish that isn't so popular, to perhaps look at what changes we can make. Next slide. So the benefits of fruit and vegetables. I'm sure you keep hearing lots about this, but I just want to highlight some key important facts. They taste great, they can be added into lots of meals, and they're full of lots of vitamins and minerals. These will help you to grow and protect your immune system and help fight harmful diseases. So it's very important we incorporate fruit and vegetables in all our meals. In terms of sustainability, we at City Catering, at school meals, we make sure we source local produce where we can. So on our school menu, we have ingredients like potatoes, which are from Lincolnshire, eggs from Melton, as well as sausages and paneer that are sourced locally as well. It's important to avoid prepping and packaged food, vegetables and salads as well. The other key thing to remember here about the benefits of fruit and vegetable is that remember that you can include tinned and frozen. If it's tinned, it's making sure that it's not in like a salty brine, so we drain that. But certainly there are lots of benefits incorporated if you have fruit and vegetables that are tinned and frozen. They still have lots of nutritional benefits. Next slide. Portions and practical tips. So this is where I want to just focus on some key messages. So hopefully you'll go away thinking, I need to aim for 5 a day. I need to aim for this colourful rainbow. And I want you to think about trying to include 5 different fruit and vegetables in your diet every day. This will make sure you get a variety of different vitamins and minerals. So to give you an example, if you think about the red colour, it's incorporating some tomatoes or red peppers into our diet, or even some red apples. Orange, going for some tangerines or some carrots. Yellow, bananas always come to mind there. And all the other colours like blue, indigo and violet. So going for blueberries and plums and even raisins. Beetroot is always one that sometimes people pull a face at, but you know, we do incorporate beetroot into our school menu as well. Next slide. So another practical tip is how much, because we always want to know how much is a portion. So when we're saying 5 a day, this means 5 fruit or vegetables a day, and this is anything that fits into the palm of your hand. So for children, it will be the palm that their hands, and for an adult, it will be a portion that fits into the palm of their hand. So an apple, about perhaps 8 to 10 grapes. Maybe for a child, it would be a bit smaller, so it'd be 6 to 8 grapes, a handful of cherry tomatoes. So just remember, anything that fits into the palm of your hand. Next slide. At school meals, we use a variety of fresh, frozen, dried and tinned. So again, as we've said, this does include as part of your 5 a day. All of them contain lots of vitamins and minerals. And it's also a quick and easy way to remember when you're at home as well, to try and incorporate these varieties in your meals at home as well. Next slide. Fruit juice. So if we another way of including your 5 a day is to have a glass of unsweetened fruit juice. At school, we encourage water to keep us hydrated, and this is the most sustainable source of hydration. And remember to use a refillable bottle. But if you are having a glass of small unsweetened fruit juice, we're talking about 150 ml, which is a small glass of pure juice, which perhaps you might have with your breakfast when you're having a bowl of cereal. Next slide. Other tips. So just some suggestions there. So when you're having things like breakfast, try and incorporate some bananas, perhaps a chopped banana in some cereal or banana on toast. If it's for lunch, incorporating some snacks like cherry tomatoes and carrot sticks is a good way. So making sure you're having that in your lunch meal as well. At school dinners, we make sure we incorporate plenty of vegetables in there. One of the things we do is incorporate vegetables in our sauces. So our homemade tomato-based sauce on our school menu, we incorporate quite a few different vegetables. So they're kind of sneakily added in, but they do give you the benefits there. Adding fruit into puddings. So the key thing we've done is reduced a lot of our sugar in our puddings, and we replace it by adding fruit or dried fruit to replace the sweetness. So I hope you do enjoy the puddings on your school lunch. And the next slide. just want to touch on if you're vegetarian or vegan. Okay, so if you are following a vegetarian or vegan diet, it's very important to include beans and lentils, soya, microprotein like corn, and also nuts and seeds. All these are going to give you an adequate amount of iron in your diet. So it's going to help you concentrate and give you plenty of energy. So it's very important that if you're vegetarian or vegan, you're incorporating a variety of these in your diet every day. Thank you. And the final slide. And it's just if there was any questions.
That's absolutely brilliant, Jess. Thank you very much. There's some really good ideas in there, I think, and certainly something that we can all take away, even for someone like me who's vegetarian and vegan most of the time. There's always lots of ideas in there. And one thing that I've got is this book that's called How Bad Are Bananas? So this is written by a guy who's looked at lots of carbon footprinting of food, and actually bananas are really good, both in terms of sort of nutrients, the fact that you can, it's got its own packaging, and the way that it sort of travels, that you can sort of cut banana plants and send them across, and it comes on a ship, which is much better for the planet than a lot of fruit and veg that sometimes is flown in. So yeah, some really good ideas there. So thank you, Jess. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
We'll hand over to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Amir Hussain, and Amir is going to be talking. I'm very interested about sugar, and how sugar affects us, and how that sort of fits in with our healthy lifestyles as well. So Amir, I'll hand over to you if that's okay.
Just gonna unmute myself so everybody can see.
Yeah, we can
hear you. Can you see my screen first of all?
We can, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
And everything's moving?
It is, yeah, perfect.
So my brain is working, my computer's working, so we can get started. Right, good morning everybody. Thank you for coming along, thank you for having me as well. And today's presentation is essentially asking a question or answering a question, which is what happens if we don't have a sustainable diet? So eloquently what Jess has mentioned, and how that actually affects our brain. So what I'll be talking about is essentially what happens to your brain if you don't have that kind of diet. How does it affect you if you perform at school? So for children who are watching, what happens to your brain when you're at school, and how does it affect your tests, your lessons, understanding things that your teacher might be saying? And can that be due to having an unsustainable diet? And what does the science show behind this? So what are these fancy scientists all around the world talking about when a person does not have a sustainable diet? And then some little cue points about how can we minimize those harmful effects. Now, before I go into the science behind it, I want you just to visualize a real life scenario. So on the one side, we've got what teachers might say, and on the other side, we've got what children or what students might say. So imagine children, you're in a lesson, you've done a test or something, you've done some information that you have to write down or you have to draw or create. And teachers, imagine you're obviously leading that session. Towards the end of that session, you may have a little bit of a communication with the children. And teachers might say, hi there, you've not been performing very well today, something wrong, or you've been, unfortunately, you've been a bit naughty, or you've not been paying attention, or you seem very lazy. And the children, you might say that, oh, I find it really hard to remember today, or I feel so tired, I don't feel like working today, I don't feel like I can't understand anything, or even for me, which is really personal, is feeling that you're not smart, feeling that, oh, I really don't understand this, maybe I'm just not smart at all, maybe I'm just, I'm really down. And when we look at what an unsustainable diet is, we've got a lot of high processed foods, essentially the opposite of what Jess has just mentioned. And a lot of those high sugary foods can really impact your brain. So now imagine this scenario. Could your diet be to blame? So those questions I just posed to you, could what you're eating be affecting how you're performing at school, whether you're a teacher or a child? And there are some arguments to help that diet is even more important than we actually realize when it comes to learning, when it comes to trying to memorize things, when it comes to doing well in a test or working well with people. Sometimes your diet and what you're eating is actually stopping you from being as good as you could be, essentially. And the way that works is that you can see here on the left-hand side, there's 5 things that a food affects in terms of your brain. So number 1, we've got focus, as you can see. Now, in regards to how sugar affects focus, is you may have learned in biology, I'm not sure, that your brain has many different types of cells, and one of the cells is called a nerve cell. And we know that sugar actually damages those nerve cells. And what unfortunately happens is that parts of your brain struggle to communicate with each other. And when that happens, you have a really foggy kind of focus. So, you can't really pinpoint what's actually being said, or you can't essentially connect the dots. And that's sugar, which is obviously part of what you eat in terms of highly processed food, a unsustainable diet. That is not actually affecting your focus. And imagine if it's affecting your focus, do you think you can focus really well in a lesson? If you can't focus really well in a lesson, you may not be able to pick up all the information the teacher might be saying. And that might be due to what you had at breakfast, what you had at break time, and a lot of what you've had in packed lunches, which is something we're going to talk about in a bit. And then when you're looking at memory, which is another part of your focus, of your brain, you have to remember that when you're in school, you have to try and remember a lot of things you did during the week or during the month, and you have, end of year exams and things like that. Sugar can also affect your memory, because sugar, again, refined sugar, can really cause different hormones in your body to go up and down really, really fast. And when it does that, you might have experienced this both with adults that are watching and children that are watching, that if you had a really sugary meal, you feel really, really sleepy afterwards, don't you? Something that we term as food coma, that once you've had this meal, you may have had it at home, you're just going to go to sleep. And that's because that sugar can really affect your mood and really affect your certain hormones that regulate how you sleep. So imagine the food that you had at break time or lunchtime might make you really, really sleepy when you're having your lessons in the afternoon. And that's something obviously you don't want as a child. You've got mood as well, as I mentioned just earlier, about how sugar affects those different hormones. Emotions as well. Imagine you may feel, why am I all of a sudden really angry? Why am I really frustrated? Or why am I feel really moody? Again, emotions is related to mood. And again, having an unsustainable diet, and part of that is having those high sugary foods, can really impact your brain in this. And stress, feeling that there's too much to do or you can't understand it, that all has a knock-on effect on all of the other points that I've mentioned. Now, when I told you those questions earlier, which was, what teachers and what children might say, all of these different points in regards to affecting your brain can be related to what you're eating. So the question I want to ask for children who are watching and teachers who are watching, what if my diet is causing this problem? It doesn't have to, maybe you, of course. Again, children, I want to just clarify that this doesn't mean that you can tell the teachers, oh, it wasn't me, it's my diet, because you're still eating the food as part of your diet. So make sure you don't try and use that as an excuse, unfortunately. Now, what does the science show? So we've just established that having that type of food is really bad for your brain, but what does the science show and what do these studies show? So I just put like a little summary on the right hand side, as you can see, that a lot of studies have shown that breakfast and lunch, if they're high in certain foods, that can really impact what we know as cognitive performance. And that's a really, really fancy way of saying brain power. And you can see it's on the slide down here. So a lot of this in the fancy world of science, they see that especially breakfast for children is even more important than it is for adults. And many studies have shown that when scientists are actually observing children in school, they can visually see those who've had a unhealthy, unsustainable diet and those who may have had a slightly better one because of how they are interacting or behaving in class. Something known as randomized trials, meaning that the scientists don't know who they're looking at, so make sure that they're not being favorable to somebody. These have also shown that the harmful effects of an unsustainable or unhealthy diet towards our brain. And in many studies since the 1950s, that's like nearly over 70 years of research that really backed up that this can actually affect your brain. And for children who are watching, this is now affecting how you're doing, how you're performing in school. So the biggest argument you can say is high sugar consumption really impairs your learning and your memory. And a large part of that sugar that comes in a person's diet is actually in the packed lunches. And it's one thing that Lisa will be talking about after me, that having a packed lunch and what you put in the packed lunch is so critical to your development. Because the children, those who are watching, Imagine that you're going to school every day and you start feeling that I really don't understand this, or I can't really focus, and some of that might be due to what you're eating, and that's how powerful a diet can be. That your development, so as you get older, you're going to learn more, you're going to develop more, you're going to understand more. You don't want that to be hindered. So what we mean by, you don't want that to be stopped or lowered because of what you're eating every day. And that's why I'm so passionate about trying to increase the variety. And Jess mentioned a quite nice way of how to incorporate better foods, more sustainable foods, to try to actually boost your development. And to give you an idea of key points that you can remember, is sometimes it's not what you're doing, but it's what food is doing to you. As we just said earlier, sugar is actually impairing parts of your brain. So you're doing something in lessons or something in school, and there could be more that you're doing, but maybe what you're eating is stopping you, and that's why food is so important. And one of the biggest things that I think teachers would be keen to remember this is that what you eat really affects how well you do at school. How well you do in lessons, how well you do in teamwork, how well you do in little tests and exams, and you don't want to have a lower grade because you weren't actually feeling really well that day. It may be you, of course, and the majority of it, but a small part of it might be actually what you're eating that's affecting you. And the last, you can see the second last thing is, you don't want food to hinder how well you perform. You want it to excel. And just mentioned a really nice variety of ways that you can use food to actually help you get better, actually help you to learn better, help you to memorize better, or help you to perform tests really well. And this is a really important point that, your children, when you get from year 1 all the way to year 6 and beyond, you want the food that you have to really make sure that you're the best version of yourself. You're doing the best in the lessons, you're doing best in the tests, And the last point is having a powerful diet, having a powerful sustainable diet really helps all of those points I've just mentioned. And it really illustrates, so it really helps to understand how pivotal and how important having certain foods in your diet can be. Because the last thing is, you don't want your food that you're eating every day to affect your brain. Now, to finish off with, what can we do? Now, a large part of the unsustainable and unhealthy diets that we have is because of convenience and because of habits. So as you see at the top, it says habit formation. So a lot of the times, whether it's a fizzy drink, a crisp packet, a chocolate, it's in a certain part of the house, or it's in a certain place in the kitchen, and it's convenient to get because we start to form these habits. So sometimes it's not that we really want to have a unhealthy or unsustainable food, it's that we find it really convenient to do so. So for example, you go into part of the kitchen, you open up a crisp packet, or you press a fizzy drink, or you rip chocolate. Within 2 seconds, you start to eat that food. And because it's convenient, it's easy to do, and then we naturally form these unfortunate habits. So out of this presentation, teachers can contact me if they want to, and discuss how children and even adults themselves start to have these habits, and how can we tackle that habit. That's where something known as neuropsychology comes in. And to illustrate this for those teachers who are watching as well, habit formation encompassed into 3 different steps. There's the cue, so there's the trigger, there's the actual routine, so you going into the kitchen, finding some kind of unhealthy food, and the last thing is reward, which is the feeling or sensation that you have. And not to go into so much detail, but the best way to stop a bad habit is to actually change it, not to remove it, it's actually change it. So if you put the stuff right at the back of the kitchen, or that cupboard, and put stuff in the front, you're more likely to have the stuff that's at the front because it's more convenient for you to reach. And these are the things that you can do during when children are at home or in packed lunches. And to give you an idea of how this actually is working in schools, if you see at the bottom, it says fruits cut up ready for break time. So a lot of studies that Elisa actually mentioned to me before in passing is, when you have fruit that's non-cut up for break time, a lot of children won't eat it. Why? Because it's inconvenient. You have to break it down, you have to cut it yourself, etc. But if you have food, so fruit, which obviously just mentioned is really good for you for various reasons, if you have it cut up already for break time, you've now increased the convenience. So the children find it really easy to eat, and you often behold, you find that children eat more fruit when it's cut up. And that's an example of how you can increase convenience to have better food that's going to help your brain. So again, slightly off topic in terms of sustainability, but I hope it gives you an idea to understand how, if you have those foods that are not sustainable, that aren't healthy, it can really impact how well you're doing at school. And obviously that's something you want to try and excel as much as possible. And I believe, so for those teachers who wanted to know about the studies, feel free to contact me for the articles that I've used. And I believe that is me. So thank you very much for listening.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Amir. Some really interesting ideas and things for people to think about. And certainly those sort of ideas about making fruit and vegetables more accessible. I mean, that's what we've seen in supermarkets, which brings other issues around plastic and packaging. But lots of people will buy fruit and veg in the supermarket that's already pre-chopped, pre-peeled, because of that reason. But I guess it's about people planning a little bit more time around some of those things. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you for those ideas. And again, if people want any more information, either from Jess or Amir or Lisa, we can obviously put you in touch, and we'll put some contact details up at the end. So our third presenter this morning is Lisa Didier from Soil Association, who manages our Food for Life programme in the city. So I'll hand straight over to Lisa. Lisa, over to you. I might just need you to unmute yourself just in case. There we go.
Yeah. Can you can hear me now? Can you
Perfect,
see the presentation?
I think we're just about to share that. Just bear with me.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you might just need to do full screen and then we should be okay. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good to go. So, hello, Lisa introduced me. So I'm Lisa, and some of you will have met me before. And what was really interesting about the previous presentations is that sort of with my presentation, we're sort of summarising a little bit. So we've talked about, what really is sustainable food. What is it? And the definition is having a low carbon output together with reducing food waste. Now, food waste, I will be talking about, I believe, next week. So when we talk about, what does carbon output mean? What's that? And it's about processes. So it's about having the least amount of processes of your food before it ends up on your plate. And so with this, this all sort of relates to sustainable food, all these issues. But I'm going to pull out two things. So seasonality, which is really important because, I can go down to the shop now and I can buy strawberries, but they're not in season. Where have they come from? When we eat strawberries, the season in Britain is during sort of June, end of springtime. And your school menu will reflect that. They're going to highlight what is seasonal and what's local produce as well. The other thing to highlight is just information and education, which is important for sustainable food, because to avoid those processes, which we said, which makes up, sustainable food, to make it sustainable, you need to know how to cook things as well. So cooking education is important. So is knowing what's in season, and that's hopefully on your menus to be able to see that. And then about food growing as well. And I don't know whether you can see that, but I've just got a little plant there. And you can see it. And that's going to go in my windowsill for some winter veg. So, salad. So that's important as well. Just knowing those things helps towards having a sustainable diet. It's also affects your planetary health as well. It's really linked together. And then you've got a more sustainable food system. If you're having a sustainable diet, it helps the planet and better health of the planet. For example, if you have good soil and the soil's treated well, you'll get better plants growing. They'll be more nutritious for you to eat. And then you're helping the planet as well. So it's all interlinked between your planetary diet and health. And this is going back to a little bit of what Jess was suggesting as well, about what do I have to eat? And Jess gives some lovely ideas about that. And it is more fruit and vegetables and less sugar, as Dr. Mia was pointing out, more plant protein, and we've got the seasonal and local food again, and reducing waste. Now, I think as well, what we need to see sort of on your plate is this example. So what we need to see when we're increasing things is about half your plate, really, of veg when you're looking at your food, and fruit as well. So the message, eat mostly vegetables if you can, whole grains. Now this is interesting, and Lee did mention this about the bananas. So it's eating less tropical fruit and more UK fruit and veg, which is in season. But also in that is about eat seaworthy fruit. What does that mean? It means things that come on a boat, because that's more environmentally friendly. So bananas, some apples not grown in this country do come on the boat, and that's a good way of having a sustainable diet too. Now, avoiding processed food as well, because that has a high energy footprint. So we're talking about fast food here, so we all like it. However, what we don't want is to have all those processes going towards making our fast food on our plate, having a high output, a high carbon output. We don't want that at all. So it's not just about your health, it's also about highly processed foods having a high energy footprint to get that to your plate. And again, Jess mentioned about fruit juice, and we do want to see you know, water bottles and using them. And there are schemes in Leicester City. There's a scheme where if you're out and about, you can refill your water bottles for free at different places. But I was surprised to learn when I was looking at this that you know, fruit juices and soft drinks are the third biggest contributor of dietary greenhouse gas emissions, and that's because they're processed. A lot of them are processed, and then you've got the bottles. Even glass bottles have to be processed, although they can be recycled better. So that's gave me quite a bit to think about. So the other fact is, if you can have a more sustainable diet, you can reduce climate change by 10%. And that's something that you can do. You're in charge of your own diet. You can say what you want to eat and how you're going to eat that, and learning all these things about food and food education. And 10%, that's not just within here, that's the world reducing climate change for having a sustainable diet. That's something you can contribute to. And then, you know, you can ask yourself your question, how can you help your school to design a climate friendly diet? Well, you can work with the caterers. You can have a school nutrition action group. You can have a look at the menu, and you can ask about having things that are more sustainable in your school food. And then there's a couple of things here that we can put up afterwards as well. And having a food waste audit, which I'll talk about next time, is useful. You can have a lunchbox audit as well. And for teachers, you can have a look at your school food policy as well, and make sure that there is a sustainable food aspect to that. And that's me. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Lisa. It's really interesting that kind of everyone's done individual presentations, but they overlap and link so closely to each other. So it's absolutely brilliant to sort of hear some of those sort of ideas linking together between all three presenters that we've had this morning. And certainly the more fruit and veg we eat, the lower the carbon footprint that food's got. And eating in season, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that I have to think about sometimes, because there's some fruit and veg, like strawberries, for example, depending on where they come from, they have a very different carbon footprint. So if we buy strawberries in June and July, we know they're grown probably in Leicestershire somewhere quite often, certainly within England. But if we buy strawberries at this time of year, they might be getting flown in from places like Egypt or other sort of places which are much, much further away. And that's something for us all to maybe think a little bit more about. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to just move on and just tell you a little bit about what's coming up later on in the week. So hopefully you've enjoyed listening to our speakers this morning. Tomorrow we've got our transport focus. So we've got Sarah, Anna and Danny, who are all going to be talking about different areas to do with sustainable transport. And our big activity tomorrow is encouraging as many of you as possible to either cycle, scoot and walk to school during that day. But obviously we would like to do that every day during the school year, but definitely for tomorrow as much as possible. And then we're just going to finish off with our 3 quiz questions for today. So for those that maybe haven't seen these before, each day we've got 3 quiz questions, and at the end of the fortnight you'll be able to submit all of your answers, and we've got a prize at the end of the 2 weeks. So for today's questions, number 1 is how many different portions of fruit and vegetables do the UK government recommend everyone has? Is it A3, is it B5, or is it C7? Question 2, how long should you run or jog for each day to complete the daily mile? So is that 5 minutes, is it 10 minutes, or is it 15 minutes? And the last question, which I think you might need to do some research on. So the recommended maximum sugar intake for 4 to 6-year-olds is 19 grams. For 7 to 10-year-olds, it's 24 grams. And for 11 to 17-year-olds, it's 30 grams. So what is the average amount of sugar eaten per day for a child in the UK? So is that 30 grams? Is it 41? Or is it 52? So I think maybe some research and finding out for that one. So that's our 3 questions for today. If you've missed any of the questions, you can go on our website and you can see the others from Monday and Tuesday. And we'd love to find out about what you're up to in school, whether it's around today's healthy living topic or one of the other days, or if you're planning something later on in the fortnight. You can get in touch through Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and all our videos will appear up on YouTube. You can also get access to all our resources by going to our school website. And if you want any more information, just drop us an email at eco-schools@leicester.gov.uk. And if you want any contact details from any of the speakers today or any other days, just drop us an email and we can provide them to you. So have a great rest of the day, and we look forward to seeing lots of you tomorrow on our Travel and Transport Day. Thanks very much. Bye bye now.